Thank you so much for checking out our video today. I'm so excited about our guest. This man is an absolute living legend in our industry, has one of the most incredible, impeccable reputations. He's personally trained me for the last 10 years, and I'm just honored to have our guest, Ron Essary. Ron, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure to be here.
The annuity landscape, at least what I've seen, has changed dramatically over the last 18 months. You shared with me when we were preparing for this is the most excited you've been about our industry in the last 20 years. Before we get into all that, I want to know, and I want my audience and people that are watching this to know, how did you get into this space in the first place? How did you decide on the insurance business?
Honestly, a gentleman showed up at my door one day. He'd gone to the church that I go to church to, and he had asked the pastor, do you know anybody that might want to sell life insurance? And he gave him my name. And he knew that I was looking for different jobs, and he showed up at my door. And I sat down and I visited with him. It seemed interesting. And I went to the little school, and I decided to go out and start selling life insurance. And the first guy I sold was a bricklayer across the street that had a little policy paying $25 a month. And I went over and I showed him the insurance I was selling. He looked at me and he goes, Ron, I think your policy is better. I go, well, I don't know. And he goes, well, I'm going to try it. And that's how I got in insurance. Honest to God's truth. That's how I got started. And it's been a successful, loving 40 years as far as I'm concerned. So
that's absolutely incredible. Let's dive into, you have a tremendous wealth of knowledge and experience in serving people. And you and I have had lots of conversations about how we view ourselves as showing up to serve people and really help be there. What would you tell people are some of the biggest risks if you're talking to somebody who's retiring in the next 5 years? What should they be really paying attention to right now?
I think one of the biggest risks is you have to be careful about losing your asset, because once it goes down, it's very hard to go back up because you have a lot less to work with. As a matter of fact, I was just looking at an illustration where the market went down 38% in 2008. And then I looked at all the returns for the next 12 years out of that market. Phenomenal returns, 25, 17, 12. But when you add it all up, it was a little over 6.5% yield because of that 1 year. And nobody can predict that for you. Nobody knows when it's going to take that big hit. And when you get in, I'm 71 years old today. When you get into retirement age, you have to be more conservative than you were in younger ages, because you have to plan for that risk and say, this is something I need to protect my family from happening to me. So I think that's the change for seniors, would be you just get more conservative in your risk tolerance.
That makes total sense. I appreciate that. One thing that I love about getting a chance to talk to you, Ron, is you work with agents and advisors all over the country, and you have for many years because of the company that you run. What should consumers be looking for in a good agent?
To me, it has to be somebody that is willing to give you education. I, to this day, still serve clients just like you do. I don't go looking for clients, but they get sent to me by referral. I've done it for 40 years. And the thing that I operate with my clients on, education. You're going to understand it as well as I understand it, or we're not going to do business. Because I could be gone tomorrow. I want you to truly understand how this works. And if you got somebody that really knows how to deliver education, I have my clients come back and say, wow, Ron, I really understand this. That's what's important to me. It's not important whether you buy something or get something. It's important that you understand whatever it is we're talking about, and the agent will tell you the good and the bad, what the risks are. And an agent that will deliver education, I believe they're more trustworthy than people that want to try to sell you something. I'm not interested in selling something to somebody. I'm interested in, I have the education to deliver the knowledge to something that people don't know. Just like if you were somebody that was a mechanic, you would give me the knowledge of what you know in your mechanical field that I don't know. That's what I want to deliver. And that's what I think is important for an agent. It's not about how many clients he's got. It's not about what sales he does. It's about, do I give the right education? Because I think honesty goes a long way in our field. So
that's well said. Let me ask you this question. So you sit in such a unique position because you do serve clients on a personal level as an agent, But I mean, you also have this whole actuarial background. You've created products and built a lot of products that a lot of people know of today. What's your specific approach to helping clients from an agent perspective? Like, what's your process you take them through? Obviously, education is crucial. And you mentioned the importance of not being transactional and really trying to build a long relationship. But what's really your approach when you sit down with somebody?
My approach when I sit down with somebody is let them talk and tell me about their lives. I'm not out to change philosophy for anybody. I'm out to understand. There's an old statement that says, understand instead of be understood. I want to understand what you're trying to accomplish, what your comfort levels are. And I'll give you a perfect example. I had an elderly couple come see me one day. They'd been out retired for a year. They had unfortunately put their money in the market with a broker. And she had worked for Kmart her whole life, and he worked in a manufacturing plant. And the day they came to me, they were in their mid-60s. They were down 24% the first year. And she said, Ron, I should have come to you by referral a year ago, but we didn't. And she said, and I need to do something. I said, look, I don't do the stock market. Okay, I'm not about the stock market. I don't do anything that's going to risk your money. And she looked at me and she said, Ron, you don't understand. I don't sleep at night. Work your whole life for Kmart, get $100,000 and watch 24% of it go away and tell me how you feel. I said, I got it. I said, the bleeding stops now. And what we're going to try to do is grow from here. And I will make that back as quick as I can, that loss. But I said, moving forward, you could never go down. You could only go up. And as it turned out, it was a good time. And within 2 years, we made that 24% back. And today they think I'm Christ and I walk on water, which I don't. It just happened to be at the right time. And I picked the right strategy for them. So,
well, you do a great job. You served a lot of people over the years. What's your favorite story from, because you have kind of multiple careers in the insurance industry. What's your favorite story from being an agent and serving people?
I always share this. I think of this. I did my first seminar in 1980, which some agents do today. And I know you do seminars.
Yeah.
And I used to take people to Mrs. Peters' fried chicken. Well, she had great chicken. I don't know if they were interested in what I was saying, but they had great chicken. And there was a gentleman that came, it was a veterinarian owner, and he asked me to come to his home. And I went to his home, it was out in the country, and we sat down and we visited, and we were talking about an annuity at that time. And I think at that time, the annuity was paying 12% because interest rates were really high. And he looked at me and he said, Ron, why don't you go to lunch and come back and see me after lunch? I was a young man trying to raise 4 kids. I went and ate lunch. I came back. He sat me down and he put a shoebox in front of me. And I opened it up and it was full of money that he had dug out of his backyard. I pulled it out. I counted it out. My hands were filthy dirty. And I looked at the gentleman and I said, well, you have $20,020 here. He goes, no, Ron, I have 20,000. I know what's in that box. I said, really? So I started to count it again. He reached down, he picked up a $20 bill, looked me right in the face. He said, Ron, I wanted to see if you were an honest man. I will never forget that.
Wow.
And he put that $20,000 with me. People laugh at him because he buried money. This man lived through the Depression. And if you're living and the government comes and takes your stuff away overnight, you learn to bury money in your backyard. And what impressed me was he didn't trust the bank. He didn't trust the government. But somehow I won his trust. And he put that $20,000 in an annuity. And it was great. That story will live with me the rest of my life. Because it taught me.
That's a pretty legendary story.
All you got to do is be honest. That's it.
Well, that's incredible. I love it. There's so many great things in that one story. So you and I were just together, and I've always loved when we get to spend a little time together. And we were just in a room full of agents and advisors. And I think what sparked this interview was what you said at the end of that meeting, which to me was one of the most impactful things that came out of that whole event. And you were in front of a room full of agents and advisors, and you stood up and you kind of gave this overview of where we're at in the industry and what you would be looking out for your client's best interest going forward. So I want to kind of shift gears from your background as an agent into what's happening product wise, specifically because you've built products and you've created so much for our industry that people all over the country use right now. I really want to dive into some specifics because the landscape has changed, at least what I've seen, pretty dramatically in the last 18 months. So this is my question. I want to know, how do consumers know if they're getting a good product?
Right now, there were times, Daniel, I wish I was 20 years younger. This is the most exciting time that I've ever seen in the annuity business, because the offerings that we're able to give people are so great. We can sit in front of somebody right now and say, you know, over the next 10 years, I can give you 5 without even thinking about it. That's pretty powerful. If you want a strategy where you can make more than 5, I can handle that too. Well, that's in a comfort level with a lot of people. An annuity is not designed to be a mutual fund. An index annuity was designed to outperform the fixed rate. And what I mean by that, if you have an annuity today, and somebody's going to offer you a 5% interest rate, if it's priced properly, we can do that 5% for all 10 years. Even though we don't guarantee it, it'll still pay it because we're getting a coupon that'll support that. Well, the reason we did index annuities, there might be years in the market where if I took that 5% and bought an index with it, let's say they offered me 12% back. If the market went up 12, I'd add 12 to my contract, not 5. So it's a way to enhance that 5. And actuarial studies show that if you stay with that strategy and the market performs 7 out of 10 years, you'll end up with a higher number than 5, typically sometimes 200 basis points higher. So now I had 7. That's a very good yield for a lot of people. And it's very important because it's safe. You're in retirement. You can never go down. You can only go up. And if you can get somewhere 5 or better, you're in really good shape today. And that's what I would recommend to people. And there are so many people who say, Ron, that rate is totally acceptable to me. And I tell them, you know, and I've had clients make as high as 12% compound in 6 years. But that's unusual. But it did happen because the interest rate environment was right. The indexes were right. We have that today. We are where we can offer a very good offering for return. And it's with great companies that are managing money the right way. And clients are going to be very happy. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. I appreciate that insight tremendously because people always want to know. And then my next question is, what can you expect in terms of a return from an index annuity? Like what should people realistically be thinking about when they think,
well, if I buy a 10-year annuity today, that means the insurance company bought a 10-year corporate bond. So we know what interest rate we're going to be able to pay on that annuity. And today, if you get with the right company that's not charging a lot to manage asset, that's around 5%. So I know I can look at that customer and say, you set this annuity up today, I can make you 5% for the next 10 years. What do you think about that? Some people may come back and say, Ron, I'm fine with that. Man, that's great. A bank can offer me that, but not for 10 years. I'm fine with that. Then some people may say, well, is there any way I can make more? Well, I can implement a strategy called indexing, where we can take some years, take that 5 and enhance it. And probably right now, we could probably enhance that by maybe 200 basis points on the average. So maybe we're looking at 7% for 10 years, not 5. And there'll be some people in there that would make between 5 and 7. And there would be some people in there that might even make as high as 10. Depends on when you get in, when you get out, when you buy the option. But 5 is a given. That's why I'm so excited today.
It's an exciting time. There's a lot of people, and I'm talking to clients every single day, that are looking at their bank and they're seeing CD rates of 3.5%, 4.5%. A lot of people are looking at banks and shopping bank products. What would you say to the CD owner? Because what's interesting to me, and before I ask that, is, the last 10 years have taught me that interest rates can go down and stay down for a long time. And now they've risen up sharply and there's this opportunity to take advantage. People are trying to compare, well, what's more, important to them? And I know it depends on their needs, but they're looking at CDs at the bank. They're looking at bank products. They're looking at fixed annuities. What would you tell people about, that are shopping for these CDs right now in this high interest rate environment, looking forward over the next 10 years? What would be important for
That
them to
is a
consider?
very good question. Banks are only offering 1-year rates. Insurance companies are offering a 10-year look. We know what we can pay in that annuity because we bought a 10-year bond. Banks aren't buying 10-year bonds. And if that market changes, you could go down 200 basis points, and they'll always be offering short-term investments. So the liability you take on is, do I think over the next 10 years, rates might go down? I think there's a livelihood that it could happen. Probably more to go down than go up. But if you bought that annuity today, your bond's already bought. And even though maybe future policyholders can't get as much, it's not going to affect your rate. Because whenever you get interest rates up, then people go, well, how long can I get that for? The longer, the better. Banks don't offer those type of products. They're all short term. We take 10-year investments and match it with 10-year liabilities. So we know we can pay that rate. Then the other thing that we look at is, how can we enhance that rate in any way, shape, or form? And that means we would look at the market. We're not, let's say you put in $100,000. I'm not going to risk your $100,000, but if I'm going to pay you 5%, that's $5,000. My job is to figure out what is the best way to give you that $5,000. Is it just give you 5% this year? Do you want to try to put it in the market to get 7%? And we go over that every year. Some people say, well, let's do 50-50. Okay, so if the market didn't go up, it still made 2.5. If the market goes up, I made better than 5. Your strategy, you get to do every year and reallocate. The flexibility that's offered in index annuities today is unbelievable. And they're matching assets and liabilities. And the second thing I want to point out, there's a principle called the principle of indemnity. And what that means is, the more people that buy the policy, the more risk that gets spread around. Most of our carriers add 100,000 clients a year. Think about that. How many banks put on 100,000 new clients a year?
Wow, that's an interesting statistic I never heard before.
So that means I'm spreading my risk around. And the other thing that's great is, if the insurance company buys the bond, the 10-year bond, and it faults, they cover the fault, not you. So they're going to buy safe and good bonds because they don't want it faulting, right?
Right.
So if you want to look at a 10-year picture, there's nothing on the market that I know of that can deliver safe and good returns like an indexed annuity. Banks can't even offer it because they're not going for 10-year terms. They're going short term. And the other thing we do is we put free withdrawals in indexed annuities. So we have one carrier that's up to 30%. Well, interest rates are at 5 today. How do I know they might be 8 next year? What if it keeps going up? And it might get to a point where it's going up higher. Well, I can go in and make free withdrawals and take that money and put it in a higher yield if I want to. You have so much flexibility. But everybody likes the 5 today. Well, how'd you like to have that 5 for 10 years? And let's just grow from there. That's why I think point.
You have created some of the most creative products I've ever seen. I mean, when interest rates were next to nothing, you found a way to come out with a 14% cap on the S&P 500 and a 4% fixed rate. I mean, the way you've built products is just really incredible. What would you say excites you the most? We talked about like interest rates, but in terms of like products and innovation, what do you think excites you the most looking forward over the next 10 years in the space?
Well, there's a thing called demand deposit. If you go to a bank and you say, I want my money 100% liquid, they can only pay you so much because they don't know when you're going to come in and take your money out. When you buy an annuity, you're buying a client behavior. And if that client looks at me and says, Ron, I am not touching any of this money for 10 years. I want to give them an annuity that's designed to pay a better rate because you didn't bother it. You should get a better rate than the guy that's bothering it every year. So when you look at an annuity, you listen to what the client says they want, what their needs are, and you design the annuity to fit whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. And the more they leave it alone, the better the rate. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
So if somebody wants to take out 10% a year and somebody wants to leave it, I should be able to pay that person that's leaving it more because they left it alone, didn't bother it. So it gets back to the education we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Listening to what the client wants to do and designing it to fit their need. There was a movie out called Flash of Genius. And it was about a gentleman that invented the windshield wiper to make it stop. Up until then, it could go back and forth, but it couldn't pause. So he figured out a way to do it. And he took it to Ford Motor Company. They said, show it to him. And he said, well, I don't want to do that till you promise me you'll use me to do it. He go, okay. He showed it to him and they sent him on his way and told him no. It took him 10 years to take him to court. And when he got in court, Ford Motor Company said, look, you just did something that we already had. You just put it in a different pattern. That's why we didn't pay you. And he picked up a book called The Road Less Traveled. And he opened it up and he read, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. He looked at the jury and said, spell it, spell the, spell best. All those words were in a dictionary, but it was the pattern that the author put them in that made it successful. And he won his lawsuit. If you're a good representative for a client today, you're going to listen to the story and you're going to design the annuity to fit whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. You have all the tools to do that. So if you listen good, you'll put the right product in there.
Amazing. Ron, your legacy in this industry is absolutely incredible. I'm so grateful that you took time to spend with me and be able to share with people that watch, to be able to help educate them and help make sure that they're prepared for their retirement. I'm just so grateful for your time. I'm grateful to know you and call you a friend, and I'm grateful for your mentorship you've extended to me over the years. Do you have any final thoughts or anything you want to leave people with, or anything exciting you're working on you want to let people know about?
Yes, I do have a final thought, and you didn't ask me to say this. You are one of the finest young men that's been in our industry in a long time. And I've done business with a lot of people. And what impresses me about you is every time I hear a client talk about you, they're so happy to have you as their agent. And I've watched that, and I've watched the response of your clients. And I'm so impressed of how you take care of people. And it's that caring that you have will build your business. You're going to have a very successful business because people end up trusting you. They trust what you tell them and the kindness that you bring to them. It's not about a number for you. You're the kind of a guy that would drive across town to pick up $1 if it would help somebody. That's the kind of people I want to do business with. Because in my industry, let me tell you, when I started, I can remember taking appointments 4 times. The guy put in $5,000. Today, I manage $1 million, but not when we started, because you have to earn that trust. And you're that kind of individual. And I'm very happy to be affiliated with you. I did this because of you.
Thank you.
I say that sincerely.
I know you do. I appreciate you so much, and absolutely, I'm just grateful for your friendship, like I said. And thanks so much for taking the time to come on and share with everybody. I really appreciate having you on.
All right. Thank you.
All right.